We're going to be talking today about managing multiple company pages, how you sort of negotiate dealing with a bunch of different company pages when you have various social media sites like Twitter and Facebook and Google+, all running at once, and perhaps others as well. But before we do that, there's been a good amount of news in the past few weeks, and so I want to go ahead and cover that. The first bit of news, Facebook introduced a fun feature called Listen with Friends, and the way that this works is that in your list of friends that appears sort of in your chat option on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see when they are actually listening to something, and then you can actually listen along at the exact same time. So this is a way that Facebook has sort of partnered up with Spotify to be able to let you do this, let you have this feature of actually listening to songs with your friends. It's a way of turning the music experience on Facebook into a social experience as well, and so it's just a cool feature I thought I'd mention. Facebook also, in bigger news, has announced that it's going to be making its initial public offering in the beginning of the second quarter. It's going to be $10 billion. It's going to be the valuation for Facebook, and so this has been making some big news in the last couple of weeks as people comment on what this means for Facebook, what it means for social media on the whole. I read one article saying that this really shows social media's coming of age, that Facebook is planning on going so big with this IPO, and this article was sort of saying that it signifies that social media is here to stay and is really a key player, not just a passing fad. I thought this article, this picture here was too good to pass up. This does not actually have anything to do with Facebook's IPO, but it may as well have. That's Mark Zuckerberg, of course, CEO of Facebook, holding up a sign that says thanks. Another Facebook feature that has been added in the last few weeks, they've partnered with a video program to introduce something called the Timeline Movie Maker. I think this is just at timelinemoviemaker.com. You can find it. And what it does is it's really meant to sort of win over the skeptical timeline user, for people who aren't sure about this new Facebook timeline thing and want to, see why it's an important thing. They've created something where you can have, if you're willing to let the Timeline Movie Maker, which is a Facebook created app, if you're willing to let it use your status updates and your photos and videos, it turns all of your timeline into this engaging movie about your life. And yes, it is sort of a narcissistic experience. Excuse me there. Because you are sitting there watching a video about your own life. But it was sort of fun, and as it's rendering the movie, it has these fun things while you load. It's rendering your laughs and smiles. It's capturing your good side, things like that. And I was toying around with the idea of showing you the video that it made of my timeline. However, first of all, I didn't figure that you all would probably want to sit through that. Second of all, I know that video can sometimes be difficult over a webinar connection. So, but I do recommend it if you're interested in seeing what your timeline looks like turned into a movie, or if you're skeptical about the timeline. It really is sort of a fun thing they've created. And soon, as company pages start to migrate to timelines, this is going to be the sort of thing that you're going to be able to do for your company. We'll talk more about that as that transition starts to happen. But this tool, I think, is going to be a powerful way for companies to tell their stories as well. So we'll look forward to that too. Pinterest. I mentioned Pinterest in my last webinar as something that was probably going to be big in 2012, and actually the next webinar that I do is going to be on Pinterest, sort of explaining what it is and how it works and that sort of thing. A recent study showed that Pinterest is getting more referrals than any other site, so it is growing very quickly right now. And at the same time that this news came out about how much Pinterest is growing, there was also an article that came out that showed that Pinterest is actually generating income from some of the links that users are posting on Pinterest. So, for instance, if I post something that's a link to a product on Amazon that I like, what Pinterest is doing is actually altering my link so that it gets credit for forwarding my link on. And so if somebody buys the product based on that link, then Pinterest gets a cut of that income. The big reason this was news is because Pinterest didn't at all mention this to their users. They didn't tell users, they didn't disclose that they were doing this. And so it raised some sort of ethical questions about, wow, is it really okay for Pinterest to be monetizing on its users' links without saying that it's doing so, without that being part and parcel of sort of the policies of using Pinterest. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But for now, Pinterest is rising. I seem to get notifications all the time that various people are following me on Pinterest, which is funny because I have hardly done anything with it so far. But I think that's partially because as more people join it, you're sort of automatically placed in a situation of following your Facebook friends on Pinterest. So anyway, look for more news on Pinterest as we go into the next webinar here. And our one to watch this week is a site called gentlemint.com. And I read an article about this site saying that basically what Gentlemint is Pinterest for guys. Pinterest has been unique among social media networks in that a larger percentage of its users are women as opposed to men, whereas most social media sites, most users tend to be men. But here's gentlemint.com coming around saying, we're going to do a Pinterest-like thing, but it's going to be geared toward guys and their interests. And basically, the idea is that it's almost like a Pinterest niche group for people who are interested in, all things masculine, whatever that really means. So anyway, I thought it was interesting. The commentator I read who was writing about Gentlemint just said that it was, pointed it out because he thought it was going to be something that was a phenomenon to watch as these Pinterest groups, sort of specialized niche groups, start popping up. And now I want to jump into the focus, straight talk on managing multiple company pages. Again, the issue here is as more social media services become popular and as they allow companies to have their own pages and their own presence, how do you start managing more than one of them? It can be time-consuming. It can be difficult to keep up. And so how do you do that? And so what I want to do is just talk through, I think I have a list of 8 sort of ideas here about how you can manage the flow of different company pages. And so I just want to talk through those. And this is an excellent opportunity actually for me to remind you that that if you want to you can insert questions. And I'm pausing so much because I'm actually looking at the questions that have been posted already. I know we are having some issues with the audio dial-in, and I do apologize about that. We've been looking into that issue as well, and I'm sorry that it's still turning out to be an issue for several people. I hope you're able to hook in with your speakers on your computer. We will try to figure out what's going on with that. And I'll address some of the other questions that I see here at the end, but I want to go ahead and continue on with the issue of these multiple company pages and how you manage them. So the first thought here is just that you do need to make some choices about which sites to be on. And if you've been sitting in on my webinars long enough, this slide may look somewhat familiar to you. The idea here is just that there are so many choices out there of different social media sites that you can use. And you can really, drive yourself crazy trying to get your company out on all of them and stay current with all of them. And so really at this point, I think it's important to choose which ones you're going to be on and stick with those and not worry about the whole gamut of what's out there. Pick the ones that are going to be most significant for your industry, most significant for the business that you do. And as I've said before, and I'm adding one to the list now, the three sort of likely choices here are going to be Facebook for sure, Twitter possibly if you have enough to contribute, and Google Plus is starting to be one that you at least want to give some thought to. So these are sort of my basic recommendations, and then I would have additional recommendations just depending on industry and depending on what your company's goals are. But so anyway, that's the first thing. Just choose which sites to be on. That's going to be half the battle in managing multiple company pages. And then number two, decide what's going to be unique about each site. And I'm going to use Pivot as the example here. And you may have heard me say this before, that our Facebook page is really a place for all of our clients. It's a sort of general interest kind of thing. It's where we try to let clients know what's going on with us and reach out about various issues and just post things that we think are interesting or funny. But then our Twitter feed is really geared toward passing on information about social media and also about telecommunications, passing on articles that we think are going to be interesting, sort of commenting on them as well as we do so. And so we've really made a choice as a company that Facebook is really sort of the main client gathering, but Twitter is going to be for the specialized thing of sending out articles that we think are interesting. So it's okay, in other words, to decide that some sites are going to be for this particular thing, other sites are going to be for this. You could decide that your Facebook page is where you're going to do a lot of your general relationship building, but Twitter is where you're going to be handling customer service, or you're going to get active on Quora, answering questions and things like that. You could decide that Yelp is where you're going to ask customers to focus their reviews and their recommendations as opposed to filling out recommendations on Facebook or something like that. So just decide what's going to be unique about each site you use, because that is going to help you then make decisions about what you need to be posting where.